Hi, friends. For those who maybe are seeing me for the first time, or maybe this video was shared with you, my name is Corey Weathers. I'm a military spouse. I'm a licensed professional counselor that works at the military. I have a license in 3 different states, but a lot more of what I do is teaching on leadership and really studying our culture, studying the morale of our culture in hopes that I can encourage leaders and encourage families like yours every day. There is so much going on in the world and so much that I could talk about or respond to. But specifically, I wanted to address the kind of the state of frustration that is happening within the TRICARE system. Specifically, those of you who've been impacted by the transition of the contractors of Health Net to TriWest in the West region. Um, this video is not going to be a short video. It's not going to be something that I splice up like my TRICARE video from 2019. I'm not going to try to be funny. I'm not going to try to do a short form video because I think that there are times when we need to have what I think is a family meeting where we come together and not only validate what is going on and say some hard things out loud, but also work together to find our words. We sometimes do that as parents all the time, right? Like, let's use our words. And so I think we need a time to find our words so that we know what to do with our own state, with the struggle that you might find yourself in. I'm also recording this video rather than going live. Number one, because I personally feel affected by this transition, and I feel affected by a lot of the other things that are going on in the world right now. And I didn't know if I was just going to ramble through this whole thing, but also didn't or couldn't promise that there's not going to be some, kitten that runs across the screen and makes a live video very challenging. And so, in effort to measure my responses and really think through how to encourage you, I wanted to record it and put it out there. So this is your heads up, but this is not a short video. But I do think that this video applies to you, whether this TRICARE transition has affected you personally or not, even if you're in the East region, because I wrote a lot in Military Culture Shift. I wrote a lot about the state of our culture, the morale that I believe has been struggling for a while now, and the compounded stress that we have experienced as a community over time, and how that has impacted our retention, how that impacts our recruitment. And that all matters as we go into something like this TRICARE transition that is not going very well and that is affecting a lot of people. And it also helps us understand how a lot of people might be feeling about the changeover of administrations. And so I'm not going to get into that as much in this video, other than to say that there's a lot of people that are feeling a lot of things. And it's not just about executive orders. It's not just about the TRICARE transition. It's not just about any one thing. It's about a lot of things, and a lot of those things happening over time and compounding over time to get our community and culture to a place where our reactions might be hard to understand for those on the outside, not understanding those reactions. And maybe you don't understand your own personal reaction. Perhaps you're feeling really a lot of strong emotions about things. And it's always kind of a red flag when we're feeling a lot of emotions or we have emotional flooding and it doesn't quite fit the one isolated situation that we find ourselves in. That's usually a sign that there's a lot of stuff that is stuffed down deep inside or has been compounding over time. We've been stuffing it for a long time. And now this one thing is happening and it's all starting to come out at the same time. It reminds me of my son when he was really young. I remember him bursting into tears and me not understanding what was going on and what was upsetting him so much. And when I finally got him to say anything between his sobs, He said, I don't have a red umbrella. And of course, I had no clue what he was talking about. I think he had seen someone else that had a red umbrella, but obviously there was a lot more under the surface than the fact that he wanted a red umbrella, right? And so that's always been kind of like a phrase or a metaphor for me to remind myself that sometimes we find ourselves reacting and saying things in the moment, but it's tied to a lot of other things underneath the surface. So, I want us to talk about what's going on with the TRICARE transition. If you are just now catching up, it was, I think, a $65 billion government contract. It's a privatized contract where TriWest is absorbing the West region for TRICARE. Humana is keeping the East region. There's even been a shift of 6 states that were part of the East region that are now going to be part of the West region. And so not only do we have the changing of hands, changing of responsibility for a contractor to take on everybody within the West region, but we also have the confusion of 6 states that were with Humana that are now being transitioned over to TRICARE West or TriWest. I'm going to try to walk us through how we feel about all of this and try to validate your feelings. And keep in mind that I currently am a beneficiary. I'm a military spouse. We are in Texas. We are one of those states that was doing fine under Humana that's now going to be under TRICARE West. I feel personally affected by it as a beneficiary. I'm also a provider who was working fine with Humana and am now trying to figure out how to work within the system of TriWest, struggling with that system and experiencing a lot of the frustrations that our providers are experiencing in not being able to provide for services or provide their services because they're not able to get compensated with a system that is broken down. So I not only feel deeply personally affected myself, but I'm trying to ask myself, adding to that, being someone who just wrote a book on how the DoD and how leaders can win relationships again, that can boost morale even when things are going wrong, I find myself trying to walk myself through my own logic, my own thinking, trying to regulate my own emotions and asking myself, like, what do I need to say to myself? And what would I say to other people? So I think I would just start with saying, I am deeply frustrated, bordering on resentful myself that I would even need to make a video like this in order to encourage you, to encourage us in a situation that it's not my responsibility to address the problems of the Department of Health agency that runs the TRICARE contracts, or TriWest or TRICARE. It should be coming from the institution. The institution should be the one that is doing this video to say, I hear you. There are some very big problems, and those problems are creating consequences in your life, and I'm sorry. That should not come from me. It should come from the institution. But when it's not coming from the institution, we can have a lot of feelings about that. And I just want to use this opportunity to remind us. I want to pull some language from Curt Thompson, who deserves all the credit for this. He's written some incredible books on shame, incredible books on confessional communities. And he talks a lot about rupture and repair in relationships. And if I will remember, I will put in the comments and put a link to a recent podcast that he just put out that talks about rupture of relationships and the importance of repair. And he does such a beautiful job talking about this. But as I was listening to that episode this morning, it really helped me with finding my own words that I hope will encourage you, because we will all experience rupture of relationships. It's inevitable that we will experience rupture in our marriages, in our friendships, in our relationships with our kids, in our relationships with our jobs, with our colleagues. It's just the nature of being a very flawed human being with our insecurities and the baggage that we bring into our relationships, that we will bump into another person who's bringing all of their stuff into the relationship. And you mix all of that together, and we are going to have misunderstandings. We're going to have assumptions made back and forth. We're going to have these moments of rupture, even when somebody didn't mean to create that rupture, right? I mean, Matt and I talk all the time about when we have our own conflict, most of the time, we're not meaning to hurt each other. We're not meaning to create a rupture between us. And then we end up fighting about whether or not those intentions really matter, because really deep down inside, when you experience the rupture of a relationship and you feel deeply wounded and you feel hurt, what you're really feeling is the deep need to be seen, to feel valued, and that you long for this relationship to be repaired. And you long for your heart to be repaired. And that only happens if the other person on the other side of this relationship that has been ruptured sees you and sees the relationship as worthy of repair. It's one of the things that I wrote in the very last chapter of Military Culture Shift, that it is critical that if we are going to heal the relationships within our force today, if we are going to heal the retention issues, if we're going to heal the recruitment issues, that the institution is going to have to see their relationship with their people as worthy of repair. That they have to acknowledge that a rupture has happened, and that the people feel something has gone wrong, or a betrayal has happened, or however you want to name it, that there's been a rupture in the relationship. And when you don't have someone that acknowledges that, it comes across as seeing the relationship as not worthy of repair, which creates a further wounding. So I want to talk to you about a sense of agency, a sense of your ability to make a choice. Because really, when it comes down to it in relationships, we cannot control the other person. We can't force them to apologize. We can't force them to care. We can't force them to repair. We can't force them to see the relationship as worthy to repair. And that's the hardest part, right? When we receive silence from the institution, it feels like a further wounding that you don't care. And let me just take a moment to acknowledge that some of you are deeply struggling with this transition. I mean, some of us, myself included, I'm not needing medical care right this moment. My boys are old enough. Our last one's about to go into college. Some of the medical issues that really created a lot of stress, a lot of worry and concern for us as we've been an EFMP family for a long time have since gotten better. And so I am okay to make it through this transition until everything gets better. But I know that there are some of you that are in the thick of it, that you are in need of urgent medical care right now. Some of you have autistic children that need ABA services. I've even heard some of you are going through a deployment that has escalated the stress in your home and that you need the support, and that support is not there. There are providers out there that 80, 90% of their caseload was TRICARE patients, and that when they aren't able to get paid, it's scary to realize that you may have to close your practice or do something different or choose to not serve this population that you were willing to serve, even if you were going to make less than those people around you that are taking on other insurance companies and all of that. There are some of you who are pregnant that need prenatal care. There are some of you that really are feeling this on a very intense level. And I just want to tell you that your feelings are valid, that your concerns are valid, and that if you need urgent care, if there is something that is pressing, number one, go and get the care that you need. And I know that that's not an easy thing. Maybe you're saying that's easy for you to say, but there's the fear of incurring financial costs that you may not be able to afford. There's the fear of being turned away. All of those things are valid too. I want to recognize that you are in a stuck position and that your frustration, your fear, your concerns are valid. And can I also say that your anger is valid too, because I know that what you're saying is, we made an agreement we families made an agreement with the DoD, with the institution. I will sacrifice my convenience. I will follow my service member wherever the military leads in return for the benefits that you've promised my family, being safe housing, support, childcare, all of those things that have been a struggle for a long time. And some of you have felt for a long time that those things that were promised to you have not been easily accessible. Try the childcare waiting lists, housing that was not what you thought it was going to be, moves that were more frequent than you thought they were going to be, PCS issues that came with complexity, and now to have TRICARE, a $65 billion contract, not transition well, to have an entire system go down where you feel like you cannot get your medical care. It is completely valid. And that's why I'm saying this is not just about TRICARE. This is about families who have been experiencing rupture after rupture after rupture, and each time going, you know what? I'll give the institution the benefit of the doubt. You know what? They're doing the best they can fix it. You know what? The SecDef just put out, a piece of a solution. You know what? I can hang on a little bit longer. And just like the red umbrella, we get to a point, all of us will get to a point when you find yourself in a relationship where if there's been too many ruptures and not enough repairs, then we have to decide what we're going to do with the fact that we are in a relationship where it never is getting repaired, where you never are feeling treated as worthy of going into a conversation or a dialogue that moves towards repair. I write about in my book that this relationship that we have with the DoD, the institution itself, is a very complex one. The truth is, we as families are in a relationship, a very personal relationship with the institution that has agreed to give us and provide us the things that they said that they were going to provide. But the institution is in a different kind of relationship with us, where it's not a personal relationship. It's hard to describe. It's not quite a business relationship. In fact, in the book, I talk about it almost being like this romantic comedy, if you will, that's not funny at all, right? But it's this romantic comedy of one person going, where is this relationship going? Because it's very personal to me. And it almost feels like the institution comes back with, it's complicated, right? Or it's not personal, it's business. Whereas for families, it's very personal and it's not business. And so this is what I'm going to say to you. And I hope that this is encouraging. Number one, you get to decide. It is important to you to make healthy decisions for you. If you are in need of medical care and it's urgent and it's an emergency, please go to the doctor. Please get the care that you need. Sometimes we just have to do the next right thing and we'll figure it out later. We'll figure out the finances of it later. We'll figure out if TRICARE will back pay later. We'll figure it out later. So if you are in an emergency situation, in an urgent situation, please go get the care that you need. Don't wait for this to get resolved if you need care now. And I'm frustrated to have to say that for the institution, but I think it's important to say. If you are not in an emergency situation, my encouragement to you is that if you can wait it out, TRICARE in a transitional state has happened before, and we've gotten through those transitions before. Anytime we are going from one entity, contracted entity, to another contracted entity, it's going to have some things go wrong. There's going to be some bugs that we have to work out. And this is a lot. There's a lot of bugs in this one, right? And it's not okay. And I'm not excusing it, but sometimes it doesn't go smoothly. And can I just say, after being in 17 years, this has happened before and things will eventually smooth out and it will get going again and you will have the benefits that you need the way that they were described to you. So if you can hold on, hold on. It will get better. It's not going to get better quickly, and it's not going to get better without additional consequence. The thing that's different this time is we have a lot of providers that are feeling threatened that they may have to close their doors. And we were already in a shortage of providers, some who were already trying to decide whether or not they were going to continue to take TRICARE that's very low paying compared to other insurance companies. And just as a quick understanding here, TRICARE is not insurance. TriWest and Humana, they're not insurance. What providers are getting is a benefits. You as a beneficiary get a benefits package. So unlike as a provider, when I get, let's say Blue Cross Blue Shield is the insurance, the health insurance for a patient, the difference here is that TRICARE is a benefits package. And so they come to providers and they say, here is what you can get paid. Here's what we're going to pay you as a benefits package for DoD employees and their families, their beneficiaries. Will you agree to take a discounted rate because these are families that serve the country? And so it makes sense that we're going to ask civilians and providers to take a discounted rate in return for taking care of service members and their families. So it's not an insurance, it's a benefit. And so providers were already accepting a lower pay, a discounted rate on their services. So many of them were already on the fence on whether or not they were going to continue to work with TRICARE. And to now have all of this go wrong, many are choosing to say, I don't want to work with TRICARE anymore. It's not worth it. And others who, like I said, 80–90% of their caseload was a way to give back to military families and serve them if they aren't getting paid. And if it's this complicated and there's this much disruption of payment and the system, it's also within their right to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And that comes back to that sense of agency, that when you are in relationship with someone, an entity, any kind of relationship where it's rupture after rupture after rupture, and there's never repair, it is within your control to decide what you will do and what choices you will make to continue to be in a relationship with an entity that does not see you as worthy of repairing with. Now, I'm not telling you to leave the military. That is a family choice. That is your personal choice. What I am trying to describe is that providers have the right to make that choice, to say this is not a relationship that feels beneficial or feels like a respected relationship between TRICARE and the provider. And although it can be stressful and frustrating and devastating to feel like all these providers that you already were on wait lists for, people that you've been waiting to see to have your appointments canceled, it's so understandable for you to be angry at those providers, to go, don't you care? Of course they care. But they are also in a relationship that is not being treated with respect. And it's within their right to say, this is not a relationship that I want to be in. And I'm also here to say that it's understandable if you are feeling the same way. We are already seeing a mass exodus of millennial families, especially young families who got into the system only to realize this is not what I thought I was signing up for. And it grieves me to say this out loud, but I want to validate that some of you are going, this is too much, that our family is in need of more care than this. And again, if you can wait out the situation, it will smooth out. And that's probably what the institution needs to be putting out. They need to be saying, this is really hard. We understand that there are deep concerns, that there are deep fears, that many of you feel panicked, that many of you need care and you feel like you don't have access to the care. Here's what we would tell you to do if you need care right now. Here's what we would ask you to do, and being patient as we resolve it. But we hear you, we understand, and we agree this should not have happened. And we are sorry. That's what should be said. And if I had the ear of those in charge, that's what I would encourage them to say. Just say the truth out loud. But it's not been a pattern with the institution to be that vulnerable. And as much as we would want them to be that vulnerable, it's not been their pattern to do that. It's not been within the personality of the institution to do that because they are in a different relationship with us than we are with them. And we could also give them the benefit of the doubt. They're in crisis mode. They're trying to fix things. They're trying to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. The line is busy, right? And that may be true. That may be what's happening. And that may be a good excuse. So if you are a family that can hold on, I think that the institution would tell you, and I'm telling you from experience, things will eventually smooth out. It will eventually transition over and your benefits will be up and running. I don't know if there'll be the providers on the other side, but I can tell you that the system will be up and running soon. But I also want to validate those of you who may be feeling like it's a little too much right now, or those of you who feel like there's been rupture after rupture after rupture. We've gone through the Afghanistan exit, which was a huge moral injury to so many of those that served during the intense years of GWOT. There's been a lot of stressors of provisions that have not rolled out the way that you expected, things that you and your family needed that have not been as high quality as you thought they would be. Perhaps the community itself has not been as supportive as you hoped it would be. All I can say is that it is up to you and your family to decide what to do and how to be and how to exist in a relationship with the institution. There will be a lot of ruptures because the institution, again, is in a different relationship with you than you are with it. There are some things that we are going to have to be okay with. Some things that don't escalate our emotions on such a degree that we demand something that the institution is not capable of being. One of the hardest parts about entering into repair and choosing choosing your agency, your locus of control, your choice to say, you know what, my heart needs repair. I need repair in this relationship. And we should all take ownership for our choice to try to repair where we can. One of the most devastating feelings is when you try to repair a relationship and you're disappointed by the other side not meeting you where you're at, not listening, seeming to not care, or not just not reacting the way that you hoped that they would. Because a lot of times, again, we are going into the repair process not just to get the situation fixed, because the situation will eventually get fixed. What we're coming into the repair process for is to feel seen and to acknowledge that there is a longing to feel seen. There is a longing to feel valued by the institution, that they would want to repair it, that they would want to reach out and acknowledge your pain, that they would want to acknowledge that this was more than an inconvenience, that this is hurting people, or that people are suffering, or that you are scared. And it's a valid request. But when the institution cannot, will not, for whatever reason, won't give you the reaction that you deeply need, these are those moments that we go, I need to take a look at what I'm longing for and ask myself, where, number one, is that longing coming from? Is it tied to, like the red umbrella, is it tied to a longing to be seen in other areas of my life too? Do I feel seen by the community? Do I feel seen by my family? Do I feel seen by the nation? Do I feel seen in my marriage? Do I feel seen by my kids, my friends? Usually, our reaction and need for longing in that moment where someone is not reacting the way that we wanted them to react, chances are it is pulling up all of these other longings of unmet need. So that's number one. Where is that longing coming from? And can we address those repairs that need to be made? And then number two, to ask ourselves what to do with the expectation of whether or not the institution can repair or behave the way that you want them to. And what does that mean if they can't? Does that mean that you acknowledge what it is and you keep going because there are other reasons that your family has decided to be in the community, reasons to serve? What was your why that you first came in? And is that why still valid? Is the other provisions still something that gives you the foundation to persevere and be, as they would say, resilient, right? Are there other things that you're able to take a look at and go, this is upsetting, it's frustrating, it's not what I wanted, it's created an immense amount of stress and havoc and even pain and suffering in my family, but these other things are things that we value and they're the reason why we came in, and I can get through this because of the other values that are important to us. Some of you will be able to move through this. Others of you may not be able to, and that's okay too. And that's one more reason why I'm deeply concerned that the longer that the institution struggles with communicating their value of their people, that their people are worthy of repair, the longer the institution struggles to communicate that, the more we're going to see retention issues and a mass exodus. Because people online, this is my message to the DoD and to DHA, Tri-West, and anyone else in this situation, and anyone else that's willing to learn this lesson. It's not that hard to get online and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this didn't go the way that we wanted it to. I'm sorry that our plan failed. I'm sorry for how it's not only inconvenienced your life, but that it is creating suffering and confusion and fear. And we're so sorry. We're fixing it. In the meantime, here's what you can do, A, B, C. And here's a number you can call where we can help you if you don't know what to do. That's what needs to come out. That's what it looks like to have an authentic, respectful relationship with your employees, to be able to communicate change effectively. I wrote a whole chapter on when you make big changes, how do you campaign and communicate those changes all the way down? And that takes consistency, honesty, and seeing your people as worthy of consistent communication to make sure that they understand the change. We have to work harder. Relationships require effort. Relationships with 4 million people requires extra communication. Relationship with 4 million people across many, many platforms requires extra communication. And if you don't try, your people will see that and they will begin to make their own choices. I deeply love you. I have felt helpless in knowing how to handle this situation. This is not something that I think will be resolved by going to the media. I don't even think it's going to be resolved by going to your representatives, because everybody is going to say it's a transition and it's going to take time for that transition to happen. And they're going to ask all of us to be patient during that transition. And I want to validate that I know that for some of you, that is too big of an ask because you have already been through a lot of compounding stress before this even happened. So all I can say is make the next healthy decision that is good for you, good for your family. Get help where you need it if it's urgent. And let's figure out what you'll need to do after that financially, especially if it's urgent. But if you can hold on, hold on. But otherwise, let's acknowledge the longing that's within you. Let's take a look at our emotions when it floods our system and ask ourselves, what is going on there? What are my feelings? Why are they there? Where did they come from? And what is it attached to? It never works to storm the castle, especially when you're flooded with emotion. So my wisdom, and it is incomplete wisdom and it is probably shallow wisdom, is just to remind you to hold on if you can hold on, that I see you, that you are worthy of repair, that you are worthy of the benefits that you were promised, that your feelings are valid, your fear is valid. And I just want you to know that now is a really great time to reach out to a neighbor, to reach out to someone you know, or maybe that you barely know, for support, for help, especially if you're going through a deployment. This is the time where the community has to step up, whether that is stepping up in time and how you gift time to someone who needs a break, or whether it is gifting advice or just being willing to listen, to go, me too. This is frustrating. And I hear you. You have a right to be angry and you have a right to be scared. It's never good for us to stay in a state of fear. For those of you who are not in an urgent situation, take a deep breath. Things will get better or they'll get different. Understand that the providers around you have the choice, have the right to make the choice that is best for them and their business, just as you have the right to make a choice that is best for you and best for your family. I hope that you are well and healthy. Follow the Facebook pages of TRICARE, TriWest. Check your email. Hopefully, as news comes out, you'll get updates. There's a lot of things changing over right now. There is a lot of uncertainty happening. So it's very important for you to take care of yourselves and take care of each other.